throughout this season there's been underlying discussions if Arsenal need a centre forward, but with the recent phenomenon of scoring 31 goals in just 7 games, it is clear that they don't need one right now, and they've found a solution to the problem in multiple ways. However, probably the best way is Kai Havertz playing as a false 9 centre forward, and this is why he has to be Arsenal's starting striker for the rest of the season. Let's get into it. Now, people that watch my channel will be very familiar that I did a video 2 weeks ago talking about how Leandro Trossard has solved Arsenal striker problems, and now while at that time I definitely think he had, and I think him in a way has sort of given us the blueprint of what to do. Now obviously earlier in the season Kai Havertz has played centre forward and we've put Jorginho or played another double pivot in midfield, but it hasn't worked and not been very successful in certain times. However, the main point where it was really successful is when Arsenal are playing against teams that are very good on the counter or very good teams at the top of the Premier League that can punish you on the break. This was really good against teams such as Newcastle and Liverpool, and seemed to be the system that they went to, with Havertz went up front and Jorginho would come into midfield to resolve that double pivot. And we know this isn't a surprise at all. But against Sheffield United, we did see Arsenal play the same system, keeping the same 11 that they had in the game before. Now, while this isn't necessarily a bad thing or necessarily a surprising thing, because Arsenal have been dominating teams and winning easily, but it was strange that Arteta would decide to use this against Sheffield. This is because he often operates that double pivot against teams that are going to actually have a bit of a goal threat, not teams that are willing to sit back and let Arsenal have the ball. This is where you'd likely see someone like Trossard come in, like we saw against West Ham when Arsenal won 6-0. This was often to pen the other team back and try and get Arsenal more players that are willing to run and actually make balls over the top for people like Havertz from midfield. Now, we used a system in them games where it's a bit of a double false 9. We have Havertz and Trossard sort of playing a bit of fluid roles, but Havertz is deeper when it's a goal kick to try and win them knock-ons and them duels deeper off. Now, maybe this is still the logic to use against physical sides, because Sheffield United aren't really physical, they're just bad in every single circumstance. So maybe Arteta thought this is a great time to try that double pivot in against a team that you wouldn't really before. And while categorically Sheffield United are probably one of the worst teams in Premier League history, and they also played awful against us, we were very, very dominant, and I think it was a really good performance with the system that we used. And I think specifically Kai Havertz really shone in this game, and I think you could argue it's one of his best games for Arsenal, but you could really argue that the last month for Arsenal for him has been a proper class time. He has really become his own in that striker position, and even in midfield he's looked a much better player. Now, in this Sheffield United game there was a lot of specific things that Havertz did that really impressed me. For instance, Havertz often offers the run in behind to attack the space. This is something I recommended we do more against Porto, and I think now we probably will. This is very specifically good in this scenario because this actually allows players like Jorginho, who comes in for Trossard, to have a consistent and reliable target to progress the ball. If Sheffield United step up their defence and move higher, he's always got an option to put the ball over the top for Havertz. And in the first half, this was constantly happening. Havertz was constantly making them run to try and get the ball through. Havertz is actually a very good player running off the line for Arsenal, probably one of the best players they have, because he is naturally in that ability. He knows when to run and usually keeps himself on side. And Jorginho is obviously looking for this. He's done this his whole career, waiting for them passes, so it works for both of them in this scenario. Now, these runs often get Arsenal up the pitch quite quicker against teams that are trying to have a lot of people back. This means that when the pass is usually a perfect, like Jorginho will do, Havertz often sometimes will get a good shot or have a good chance maybe in on goal, but often most of the time he'll bring the ball down, go out wide, and it brings Arsenal overall more up the pitch. This allows people like Rice, Gabriel and White to suffocate the other team in, while obviously having the main players up there. Now, the great thing specifically about Havertz is that he actually likes making these runs in every single part of the pitch. He doesn't mind what side it's on, and will actually often do it in most sides every game. In this game against Sheffield, there was times where he went through the middle, went through the left side or the right side, often creating an overload with the players there, helping them get the ball. This also created a lot of good moments later on, not even just from running. He was there pressing with certain people and often making the right decision. And now there's been a lot of criticism of Havertz because on the ball he hasn't been as good, but his decision making is getting really, really quality for Arsenal. It's just the little things that he does so well. For instance, in the first goal that Arsenal scored against Sheffield, he runs front post and brings the defender with him. Now, he needs the people like Odegaard to be smart and take that position behind him in space, because obviously with no Trossard or Jesus or anyone, there's going to be no other striker there. But this works perfectly when you've got midfielders coming in like Martin, like Saka, all coming in into the box. And I'm guessing he gets a call by Odegaard in this scenario, but he does really well to just move his leg out of the way in a little dummy effect to give Odegaard basically a clean goal. Just smart play like that he is very good, and his interchange is getting better every single week. And with Havertz's goal, it was also brilliant play. play. He helps Martinelli win the ball back, admittedly, and Martinelli does brilliantly to do the tackle win and get the ball in a good elevated position. Havertz is there helping him just in case he needs it, and as soon as Martinelli gets brought down, Havertz has got a really good position and he's starting to get very clinical. Like I said last week, he's not going to be scoring all the time, but 3 goals and 3 down is another clinical finish, brilliant finish into the corner, and if he can keep taking them chances, he will end up scoring quite a lot of goals. And although we were 5-0 up at the time and Arsenal obviously were allowed to have a lot of players going forward, pretty much Ben White played as a centre forward for half the second half. The 6th goal is also brilliant play from the tactics. Havertz makes his run down that right side because White comes into the middle. That interchanging position with White allows him to get into that space and be able to bring the ball down brilliantly from a great Jorginho pass on the run, and he does brilliantly to cut it back down to White, who smashes it in. Another great goal and another contribution by Kai Havertz and Jorginho, and it's something that Jorginho and Havertz have been doing with each other. The over-the-top ball, the brilliant control by Havertz has been happening since they were at Chelsea, and Havertz is a very good player on the control, and I think he's proven that in these scenarios, and if you keep getting him into good positions, he will eventually get more clinical, because I think most of it is confidence down to the player. Now, the reason why I made this video, another video about Havertz, was not necessarily because Havertz's performance against Sheffield, despite I think it was excellent and arguably one of his best. It's mostly the fact that I think when Gabriel Jesus came on, it proved that Havertz has to be starting up front in the team consistently. I don't mind if you play trossard in some of them games where the team's a bit physical and you might need Havertz in that midfield to win the duels and play a double false nine with trossard, but I think these two have to be the ones that we look for. Jesus is a brilliant player and makes really good decisions, but when he gets into good positions even late on in this game, he often takes too long on the ball and faffs around with it. Instead of shooting, he wants to score a perfect goal, and I don't know if it's just a Gabriel Jesus thing, but he always likes to take too long on the ball. I think the same with Zinchenko, and this isn't like Manchester City. Arsenal benefit from quick interchange and play when they can quickly switch up from a slow to attacking sort of style. This is why people like Jorginho and Odegaard really excel in this team. They're very good at doing that, and combine that with the fact Havertz's pace and his stature that he has, I honestly think he's probably the best option for Arsenal, and his control is really good going in behind, and I'm not sure Gabriel Jesus necessarily has the pace to consistently do that. And although I don't think Havertz has a lot of composure, I don't think he is necessarily a good finisher. I think he's a lot more aware that he wants to get the shot away. When he gets in these positions, he wants to just shoot, and I actually prefer that over someone that wants to take 15 touches then make a decision. Although it may come off sometimes where Jesus does a dummy, does brilliant work and puts it in, often most of the time it just slows everything down and often costs us in the long run. You may need to still look at it a game by game basis, but I think especially for the most important games like the Manchester Cities, like the Portos in the Champions League, we have to be playing Havertz and Jorginho right now. And maybe if Partey gets a bit more fitter and gets a bit more less rusty, could consider maybe playing him instead of Jorginho. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about Arsenal's situation up front. Who do you think should be a striker, and do you think we should sign one in the summer, because it's got to be up in the air of how many goals we're scoring. I appreciate your view as always. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I recommend going to watch my video yesterday where I talk about Martin Odegaard's fabulous performance against Sheffield United. It's been good. See you in the next one.